So the title of this debate is Evolution on Trial. Is there reasonable evidence for evolution? Kant has already said that he will say until the day he dies, there is no evidence for evolution. So Kant's already made up his mind. But there's also another problem. Me and Kant are talking about different things when we use the word evolution. But my question is, how can we debate on evolution if we can't even agree on a definition? So my first question to Kant in this debate would be, what would you actually accept as evidence of evolution? Just no fossil could possibly count as evidence. No fossil you could ever present counts as evidence. No DNA counts as evidence. So my question is, what would count as evidence? And that's where I'll end my statement.
Bisexual. Nobody's ever observed a dog produce a non-dog. This is a religion. They're still dog.
Free-flowing discussion now.
So Kent said that he's not trying to get his theory of young earth creationism taught in public schools.
Buy a stack of these from our ministry and pass them out to every kid. Bert can help you get creation materials into your public school libraries. So as far as creationism in schools, if you're going to teach evolution, then yes, we should better get both in there. Otherwise, take evolution out. I'll be happy.
So you do want young earth creationism taught in public schools?
No. Either teach both or teach neither.
You're saying if they do teach evolution, then we should teach both. So you do want creationism taught in young earth in school?
No. I'm going to try to get mine into the schools any way I can. I'm going to pass out DVDs. I want every kid, every teacher to know the truth. And I encourage the kids, if this comes up on the test and they say, boys and girls, did reptiles turn to birds? You could say, kids, the textbook says blah, 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 but I don't believe it for a second.
You just said it, and you just said it in the clips I showed.
Then yeah, teach both or teach neither. So meanwhile, we will get my videos into every public school we can, every school teacher. Would you be concerned about students learning about creation? Does that bother you?
Yes, I would.
Why?
I don't think that one specific religion should be taught in a public school over all other religions.
Do you believe you are related to seaweed, like this chart shows?
Well, hold on a second. One topic at a time, Kent.
Nobody's ever seen a frog produce a non-frog or a whale produce a non-whale.
Well, I've never seen a mountain form in front of me. Does that mean that mountains don't form or aren't forming now?
So you're avoiding the question by saying, well, maybe it happens too slowly to see. Well, that's a straw man. You're drawing attention away from the obvious here. That's a non-living material. But you're trying to avoid answering the simple question by saying, what about mountains forming? You're diverting attention. Okay.
You didn't answer my question. If I can't see a mountain form in my lifetime, does that mean that mountains don't form or aren't forming?
Taught earth science 15 years. We can see examples of mountains forming. We can see some happening rapidly. Do you believe the amoeba turned to a human and you are related to seaweed like this picture shows? Do you believe that? Just a yes or no?
No. And are you saying that that chart says that the earliest single-celled organisms were modern amoeba?
Do you believe you're related to a lemur? Would that be a simpler question maybe you can answer?
Yes, but I want to stay on the question previously because the
this
earliest
is a religious belief. You want your religion taught in the schools. I resent that. Go start a private school. It's easy in Texas. I think there's nothing scientific about these charts. Nothing. You believe you're related to a snake? Chart says you are.
One topic at a time, Kent. So the earliest single-celled organisms were not amoebas, not in the slightest. Amoebas are super specialized creatures. Amoebas are highly derived eukaryotes. The first single-celled organisms were anaerobic prokaryotes. So,
and how do you know that?
Because of the taxonomy.
Well, you're using a big word there. Therefore, it's science. Do you believe a single-celled creature turned into all the creatures that we see today?
No, I don't think that a single-celled creature turned into multiple different animals. Because you're talking about one single-celled organism that turning into a bunch of other animals. That's not what evolution describes.
Do you believe these charts are religious? Most people with a brain resent that and think it's a religious belief, and you want your religion taught at taxpayer expense and nobody else's religion taught. Nobody ever observes this in the laboratory. To make it happen in the laboratory is like a bunch of carpenters making a house. That takes intelligent input. We don't see it.
Well, thank you for
before
admitting.
you respond, AJ, I want to give you plenty of time. We should keep it on topic as much as possible. And, you know, what is the best evidence for evolution, or is there reasonable evidence for evolution?
But real quick, I would just like to ask Kent, what do you mean when you say we've never seen a dog produce a non-dog? What do you mean by produce?
That means have babies, have sex, produce a baby. Only happens with male, female, by the way. But go ahead.
So does that mean that you think evolution teaches that a dog could give birth to something like a cat?
Evolution, the charts, that's not science.
But you know that those charts aren't talking about an animal giving birth to another animal.
This one shows birds coming from reptiles. That's not science. Not even common sense.
You're conflating two different things, because on one hand, you're talking about an animal giving birth to its offspring, and then you're comparing that to charts that talk about changes over millions of years with populations of animals over many generations.
Okay.
So you're conflating these two different things.
So you believe the birds gradually reptiles gradually turn to birds over millions of generations. Where is the scientific evidence for this? Nobody's ever seen any of it. It's imagination. That's all you have is SpongeBob imagination. Give me your address. Give me your address. Send you one. You need one. Keep on your dresser.
I'm not going to give you my address, Kent, because you'll give it out like you gave my last name. So
give me a post office box then. I don't care. Believe me, I'm not stalking anybody. I want to get you converted. You believe one of the dumbest religions in the history of the world. Nobody's ever seen any animal or plant produce offspring that would be considered a different kind by anybody with one functioning brain cell. It just doesn't happen. Only in your imagination. Happens so slowly we don't see it happening. Well, science is what we can observe, study, test, demonstrate. Do it in the laboratory. Turn a reptile scale into a feather. Just start with that.
So scientists actually did a experiment where they were able to turn scales into feathers by turning on and off key molecular circuits at critical stages of scale growth and development. They were able to take the embryo of an alligator and add chemical to it and start growing feathers. So this has actually been done in the lab.
You're claiming that they turned scales into feathers. I don't believe you for 1 second.
Scientists have converted
Does that
scales.
therefore mean it did happen in nature? That's your evidence?
You said that it's only science if we observe it. So this is science according to you because it's been observed.
Well, it's been observed that people can put nuts and bolts and parts together and make a car. But the question is, can the car make itself? Okay? But if they could do such a thing, again, that wouldn't prove it happened by itself in nature. There's no scientific evidence in nature of a scale turning to a feather. You just believe it. And you expect everybody to pay for it and be happy about it. I'm sorry. I'm not happy about it.
Dinosaur Adventureland is a 501c3 nonprofit organization, so you don't have to pay property taxes. So your property taxes don't go to the public schools, so you're not paying for evolution to be taught.
Are the atheist organizations also tax exempt?
Many of them are nonprofits, yes.
Okay, there you go. Thank you, sir. So I've got so many slides here to get. I can't find my slides right now, but anyway, and every school teacher, thousands and thousands and thousands of public school teachers and students do not believe this propaganda like these charts show. That this is not science, this is propaganda.
Okay,
So
and I know you'd rather your propaganda was in the public schools than that. But
this chart is in many of the textbooks. This isn't science. This is propaganda. Where's the evidence of any animal or plant ever producing babies that were different than itself? And to say it happens too slowly to see, you're admitting there's no evidence.
Well, there's no evidence of dogs giving birth to cats. I'll admit that, because that's what you seem to think evolution is. Evolution doesn't suggest that an animal like a dog will give birth to something like a cat because of an evolutionary law called the law of monophyly. animals are always going to be in the same category that every one of their ancestors was. That's
Okay,
like I
good.
said, why a vertebrate is always going to produce a vertebrate.
Well, hold it. Amoebas don't have backbones at all. Somewhere along the line, the single-celled creatures without a backbone produced a backbone. So your law of monophyly, you're talking out of both sides of your face here. Which is it? Is the animal that never has a backbone, like an amoeba or a single-celled creature, going to somehow produce one with a backbone now? Which is it, AJ? Did that first single-celled creature, whether it be amoeba or whatever you want to call it, did it have a backbone? Did the single-celled creature have a backbone?
Did a single-celled organism have a spine?
Did
No,
the
Kent,
original?
it didn't. The single-celled organism didn't have a spine.
Good. But you think it turned into a creature like us with a spine.
No, I don't.
That's what
I don't
you
think
just
it
said.
turned into anything. It doesn't transform into a human. You seem to think that a single-celled organism can magically shapeshift into a full-blown human.
The law of monophyly says they stay within their same clade, or whatever word you want to use. Well, the one without a backbone didn't stay there, did he? He grew a backbone somewhere over millions and billions of generations. So the law of monophyly, which is it? Do you believe the law of monophyly, or do you believe in evolution?
The law of monophyly is an evolutionary law.
Not if the creature without a backbone grew a backbone.
Okay, but we're talking about giving birth. So a vertebrate is not going to give birth to an invertebrate.
Chart. This isn't science. It's evolution. It's baloney. It's not science.
Great discussion so far.
Yeah, if that's okay, I'd like to talk about kinds for just a second. So I just have a few questions for Kent. Do you agree that animals can change over time?
I think the animals can change.
Okay. Well, can this be caused by natural selection, this change?
Yes, I believe in natural selection.
Okay. Well, and then can this produce animals that can't interbreed anymore? This process?
Yes.
Okay, so you do agree with me that one population of squirrels can, over time, because of variations, produce two populations of squirrels that can no longer interbreed. Would you agree that this same population, this new population, let's call this one the kaibab squirrel on the left, do you think that this population can also produce two populations of squirrels that can no longer interbreed with each other?
I think we see this happen all the time in just about every type of life form, whether it be potatoes or squirrels or pine trees.
Well, Kent, you know what this image reminds me of? The tree of life.
Wait.
So this same process you just described is the same process that is described by evolution.
Wait. Do you believe sunflowers are related to kangaroos?
Sure. So my question would just be, where's the cutoff point where this is no longer science? Like, let's start with the fish.
The cutoff point is where they can no longer interbreed. These squirrels that you showed all originally had a common ancestor called a squirrel. And if that's enough for you to believe that a squirrel and a sunflower are related, you need some real serious psychological help. How can you not see you've gone bonkers on this, taking the little variations which are science and extrapolating in your mind to believe all this family tree stuff? I don't care that you believe that. I do care that you want to force that down the throats of all the kids. That I care about. Not science.
Well, you also want to force your beliefs down the throats of kids, and you admitted that. So you say that two animals are the same kind if they can interbreed, and yet these two squirrels that can't interbreed are the same kind because they had a common ancestor?
I think anybody with IQ above 5 would say all the squirrels could have easily had a common ancestor. Now, have they diversified to where they can no longer interbreed? They're still the same kind. They're a squirrel. I think everybody will agree with that. You want to extrapolate that into thinking squirrels are related to watermelons, don't you?
One topic at a time, Kent.
But God said they'll bring forth after their kind.
And the Bible also says to stone homosexuals. Do you think that we should do that?
The Bible says to stone homosexuals?
Yeah.
Is that the topic you want to get on now?
Well,
Donnie?
you're the one that brought up what God said. So I was just wondering if
well,
you're
God
consistent with that.
God said quite a few things. We could bring that up if you'd like. But
yeah, let's stick to the evolution.
Oh, fair enough. Fair enough. I know why Kent would want to avoid that.
Well, certainly homosexuals don't bring forth at all, if you know how it works. Okay, I've been married a long time. Got it figured out really well. Okay, if you know how it works. But no, I don't think we should stone them. I think they should give their heart to the Lord and get saved. The brown cow couldn't eat the green grass and give the white milk, if you know how it works, and churn it and get the yellow butter. He didn't get the blonde hair. Otherwise, we could only eat each other. This isn't science.
Why is that?
It's not that way. It's designed so that brown cow science, and Romeo and Juliet, is more complicated than the space shuttle. That's not science. That's my whole point. You can see it. Go ahead.
So you have a son, Kent Andrew, and a daughter, Marlissa. They have DNA similarities in the sequence of their genetic code. Is that proof that they have a common ancestor?
Oh, yeah. Both of them have a common ancestor with their mother and I, and probably with grandma and great-grandma. I bet it goes back for hundreds of generations, and they were all human, every one of them. Doesn't go back to an amoeba, though, like you believe, or a single-celled creature, an invertebrate.
So DNA similarities prove common ancestry.
DNA similarities can be proven, can give us a lot of evidence for a lot of different things. Squirrels producing squirrels that can no longer interbreed, is that your best evidence?
I didn't say that was evidence. That was me examining your own claim about kinds, which apparently is so easy to understand, even though your definition has no consistency. So I didn't say that that was evidence that squirrel is related to any other animal. I was talking about...
Okay, your definition of monophyly doesn't make any sense either then, because an animal without a backbone produced a backbone, didn't it?
No.
It didn't?
No.
Over millions of generations. It slowly produced a backbone.
Sure.
Okay. That's not science. That's a religious belief.
Why do you get to decide what is and isn't science?
Oh, I'd rather have me decide it than you. Why do you get to decide what is science? Who gave you this authority?
I don't claim to have that authority. Why do you?
I'm going by the definition of science for the last hundreds of years. What we can knowledge, the word science comes from the Latin word "scire," which means to know. What do we know? We know squirrels produce squirrels. We know that. We do not know that squirrels and watermelons have a common ancestor. You can believe that. So science is knowledge, and look it up in dictionaries for the last 500 years. Knowledge gained by observation, experimentation, and testing. You tell you what, you can test it all you want. Get your squirrels, test them all you want in the laboratory, turn them into anything that anybody would consider a non-squirrel. Could you turn the squirrel into an oak tree or a watermelon or a human? Or is it always going to be a squirrel?
Well, what about squirrels and chipmunks? Are they related?
You didn't answer the question, but okay. I don't know. I doubt it. I doubt squirrels and chipmunks, they have a lot of design similarities. Same God made them all. But that doesn't prove they had a common ancestor. We've never seen squirrels and chipmunks interbreed. We see squirrels and squirrels interbreed. We got them in our trees by the hundreds around here. So, yeah, I think squirrels can make baby squirrels and nothing else. Chipmunks.
Okay,
well, some humans might have decided to put chipmunks and squirrels in the same family. We've divided animals up: kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. I don't think the squirrels care how we organize them. They don't care at all. They don't even think about it. We've decided squirrels and chipmunks are in the same family. Okay. Squirrel doesn't care that. Are they the same kind? No.
Why is the kind any less arbitrary? Because God said it?
God said 20 times in the first 7 chapters, they will bring forth after their kind. I've chosen to believe that. That's all we've ever observed. I think that's science, but I'm not demanding that be taught.
Yes, you are.
I am? Okay.
Yeah, let's the case, maybe AJ, there's a couple points you wanted to make sure you got in there.
Although I don't think that Kent was able to answer some of my questions.
Yes.
Of saying that he's not trying to get creationism taught in public schools when I showed that he is, and he said it multiple times. In fact, he seems to relish the idea of putting his materials into the public schools. Because he's got a vendetta against evolution, even though he doesn't pay for it, because he's operates a 501c3 nonprofit organization that does not pay property taxes, and yet he complains about having to pay property taxes and pay taxes that go to teaching evolution in public schools. It seems kind of hypocritical. But evolution is pretty simple. It's not as complicated as Kent makes it out to be. It changes over time, and then eventually they become so different that they can no longer interbreed. Well, and he says they're the same kind even though they can't interbreed because they had a common ancestor. That's evolution. Flat out, that is evolution, not what Kent's describing, this other ridiculous process he says that a dog will give birth to a cat or a bottle of shampoo. That's not what evolution says. And he seems to be intentionally conflating these two things on purpose. So it was a good debate.
Evolution isn't science. Wish they'd quit teaching it. Go ahead.